Hello, my friends. I'm John Laspina, the Carnivore Teacher, here to talk about the tools that I use in my kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen. Somebody asked me to make a video showing all the things that I use to make my food, because I often talk about eating beef, lamb, pork, poultry, fish, and eggs, and I've done some demonstration videos. But let me show you some of the things I use. I went around my kitchen and I brought out a lot of the stuff. So as I show you something, I'm going to put it aside, but I'll be showing you. The first thing I want to show you is I eat dinner almost every night using my Traeger grill. And my Traeger grill is out on the porch. And on the Traeger grill is a cast iron plate like this. On this side it has the ridges, and on this side it's a grilling plate. It's flat. I use the flat side, believe it or not. I put it on my grill. I heat my grill up to almost 500 degrees, 400 degrees. I bring butter. I put butter on my grilling plate so it's sizzling, and then I put the steak right on top of the grilling plate, and depending on how thick it is, 4 minutes on one side, 3 minutes on the other side, whatever the thickness is. And then, yes, I take a torch and I turn it on, and I flip it over, and I sear the outside of my steak. Not that it doesn't get seared enough on this wonderful, very hot cast iron skillet plate, but I like my steaks really crispy and torched on the outside. So I recommend that you look into buying one of these that plumbers use. I've often used it for plumbing too, to melt the solder for your copper plumbing. So there's my cast iron plate. While I'm talking about cast iron, I have different sizes of cast iron. This is my cast iron skillet that I use for big things. It's pretty heavy and cumbersome. And I have this little rubber grip that I bought to put on the end, so I don't have to keep wrapping a towel around it. Okay. The one I use almost every day for my eggs is the medium-sized one. It's not so heavy that I can carry it around. It's not cumbersome. I also have the rubber grip. And then sometimes I use this little one, very lightweight, and I don't have a grip for that one. And I will, just for small things, like for today I made bone broth by heating up the bone broth that I made using my crock pot. And I'll show you my crock pot later. And in the bone broth, I used wild-caught sockeye salmon. And I just have one little piece, so I didn't want to take out the medium skillet. I took out the small skillet to use that. And then, of course, my bone broth was in a pot. These are not non-stick. They're solid metal. I'm not sure what the metal is. I think it's iron, light cast iron. I have a set of them. I make my bone broth in those pots. I cook the meat and the salmon in here, and then I put it all in my bone broth, make a delicious bone broth. Okay, so let me put my wonderful cast iron skillets that I do season myself with beef tallow. And put these aside now, since I talked about it. This is also cast iron, and this is a grilling plate that you press down on top of the steak. So if you're searing the steak, you put this in the cast iron skillet while you're heating the skillet up. While you're cooking, you can put it on the grill, you can put it on your stove, and then you're probably going to have to use an oven mitt because it's hot. You grab it and you can press down and sear on the top. It's great for searing, okay? So I bought that as well. So that's all my cast iron goodies. Next on the list, I talked about making bone broth, so I have a crock pot. Okay, so this is my crock pot. It's ceramic, and this is metal, and it's digital. It's a glass lid. And I set it for high when I make my bone broth. If I'm cooking oxtail, I put it on high for a few hours. Add bone broth to cook the oxtail. Crock pot is a necessity. You can buy these in any store, so you should have a crock pot. I had a smaller one and it broke, so when it was time to buy a new one, I figured let me get a bigger one, right? All right, let me put that aside. All right, another thing I have that I use is this job right here, okay? This, I don't know the name of it, but let me show you in the camera. It has these very sharp little spiky edges. on one side, and if you flip it over, it's flat. So if you screw this on with the spiky edges, okay, you can use it to pound meat, to flatten it out. And I do that sometimes. If I have a steak that's really thick on one side, like a picanha, and it's thinner on the other side, I want to make it so it's about the same thickness on the grill so I don't overcook or undercook one part. And so I'll pound a steak. But every day, when I am prepping my steak, let me take a steak out of the refrigerator that's brining right now. And I take my tenderizer, the spiky part, and I poke holes in both sides so that I can salt it, rub the salt in, and then I put this in my refrigerator. I created a little brining rack so it's elevated and all the air can get up underneath it and around it and everything. And then when it's time to cook my steak, all the flavors have concentrated. That's what brining does. It takes the moisture out and it's really good. So I really recommend buying a tenderizer. This is very heavy, this thing. And then you clean it, and I always put it away with the spikes in so you don't hurt yourself. All right, let's talk cutting boards. Never use a plastic cutting board. Try to get plastics out of your life. We can't get rid of all the plastics from our lives because they're everywhere, but you can control the utensils and the tools and the things you have. So I have actually more than 3, but I got the little cutting board for little things. Medium size, I use this a lot. And these are made out of bamboo. And I scrub them. Sometimes I'll spray them and scrub them when I'm done and I put them away. I have actually many others. I have others in there that are even bigger. But this is where I keep all my cutting boards for when I'm cutting meat. And speaking of cutting, I have a lot of knives, but I did invest in one good, and I don't know the name of this knife, but this is used for cutting meats, for cutting steaks. It's extremely sharp. I'll come closer in the camera. It's extremely sharp, and I got it from the Bearded Butchers. And let me tell you, folks, this knife is amazing. It is super, super, super sharp. And I don't really sharpen it that often. Maybe once every 2 weeks, I'll sharpen it like that with my sharpening tool. And you better be careful because if you cut yourself, you're going to cut yourself pretty badly. This is super, super sharp. And I do recommend using this when you're cutting meats up to prepare them for your meals. You want a nice, sharp knife. This is not the knife I use at the dinner table when I'm cutting my steaks. I use regular serrated metal knives, steak knives, but this is for cutting. Highly recommend that. Okay, next on the list, I found this here. It's a metal straw, and it has a little rubber end, which you can take it off if you want. And what do I use this for? Well, in the mornings, after you sleep for 8 hours, you have been basically fasting. And you've also not had any water or any salt, potassium, or magnesium, nothing for 8 full hours if you got a good 8 hours of sleep. So it's important, the first thing you do in the morning, and I don't drink coffee anymore, is I fill up my coffee mug, which I don't use for coffee anymore, and with filtered water, by the way. This is reverse osmosis. I have the filters under the sink, and it has a holding tank. And this is reverse osmosis water. So I'll fill this up with reverse osmosis water. And then I put Redmond Relight, which has magnesium, potassium, and other minerals and salt. Then I add more Redmond salt. And then I take this guy, hand mixer. I just blend up all the salt, water, and everything. And then I put this in the back of my tongue. I got in the habit of doing this because when I used to do keto, I used to do apple cider vinegar every morning, and I don't do that anymore. I haven't missed it. It didn't do anything for me, to be honest with you. But now I do the salt and electrolyte water in the morning. I fill this up and I suck it down real fast. I mean, I don't have to. I could just drink it. But I got in the habit of using this from when I did the apple cider vinegar because you want to get the vinegar on your teeth. So that's what that was for. All right. When I was talking about cast iron skillets, do not use plastic spatulas. I bought a bamboo spatula. This is made out of wood. You can use a metal one, but I like wood. I really do. And this is a trick I learned from somebody online. A paint scraper. Okay? So you're cooking. This is fantastic. It's probably the best tool in my entire kitchen. And I went and got it out of my toolbox. So this is now part of my kitchen. I have another one in my toolbox for scraping paint, wiping on stuff. But this is for cooking, and I keep it with my cooking utensils. Try it. You'll be super impressed at how great this paint scraper is. When you're making eggs, it's not a big bulky spatula, which you may want for certain things, but this is great for, I flip eggs with it. I cut up my ground beef with it. It's real hard. So I highly recommend a paint scraper. All right, eggs. I love eggs. I do a lot of eggs. And if you make deviled eggs, if you'd like to make hard-boiled eggs, I'm sure you've seen one of these before. You put the egg in there, and then you put the hard-boiled egg in there, and it's got two things, slash. It's got little metal things there that cut it. It's just a little cutter. Made out of metal. Everything's metal. Speaking of metal, I do eat cheese from time to time, but it's always hard. Parmesan, Romano, very hard aged cheeses. So a cheese grater, okay? And I usually use the big side because I like big little shreds of cheese. I try not to buy cheese that's prepackaged. If I do, I read the ingredients, and a lot of times I won't buy it because it has cellulose in there, which is basically sawdust. They use that to keep it separated. So I try to buy hard cheeses. I know I've made videos in the past where I show you taking cheese out of a bag. I make changes as I move along. I don't buy those anymore. So cheese grater. Here's my metal spatula. I have several of these. Never use plastic. All right, mason jars. When I make my bone broth, I put it in a mason jar. I have lots of mason jars, and this goes in the refrigerator, and I make bone broth. Let's take a look at the Ninja. I don't use this that much. This is the pressure cooker, Instapot type thing, and you lift the lid up. It has a basket. It's made out of metal. I think it's made out of, no, it just looks like it's metal. It doesn't look like it's non-stick. And then it has this pot. I've made chicken in it. I've reheated meals in it. This is the heating element up here. You can take this off and put this on for pressure. This is the pressure relief valve. I don't use it that much. So this is one of those items that I bought. Everybody talks about their Instapots and their pressure cookers. And I have a really good one. And you know what? I have to clean it when I'm finished. It's a pain in the neck. So I will use it, but I use my crock pot more. I use my Traeger grill more. I do. I use my stove and my cast iron skillets and plates more than this thing. And I know so many people that use this more. So just wanted to show you that I do have it. Speaking of Ninja, I bought this sucker. Do you know what it is? This is called the Ninja Creamy. And I use it once or twice a year. And it makes ice cream. It does. I have this device here. You make the ice cream mixture, and it came with a book of ingredients. And of course, I don't do sugar. I don't do carbs. All carnivores, so I'll put heavy whipping cream in here. I will put cream cheese, they often say, and milk. And you can, if you want to do chocolate, you can do chocolate. I don't do that because of oxalates. But you make the mixture. You fill it up to the line. You put the cap on, and you put it in the freezer overnight. And when it's done, you put the frozen mixture in, put the cap on, you put it into the device, it rolls in. I just do the ice cream like twice a year, and that's like my birthday and Christmas. And it is a moderation kind of thing, and I'm not a moderator, but I can moderate ice cream, which is a keto treat, right? Because I put this monstrous heavy device up in my cupboard, out of sight. You have to make the stuff 24 hours in advance. So it's not something I can get at easily. So moderating is simple for me because it's not handy, it's not ready, and I have to prep for it. And I don't really look forward to it. Sometimes I skip a birthday or a Christmas. I've had this for 2 years so far. So basically, there's the blade. So the blade's in there, and I can pop the blade out for cleaning. See? So you put the blade in, and the blade is in the top of this, and it connects into this. And now it's kind of like one of my tools. It's amazing how this thing works. That blade spins, and this device bores down into the frozen mixture that you made, and the blade gets lower and lower until it hits almost the bottom, spinning at a very fast speed, taking that frozen mixture and kind of like creating like snow. And then it comes back up, and then when you're all done, you take it out, and there you have ice cream. It's amazing. It's really an amazing device. I had 4 of these, and I would make 4 and put them in the freezer so I can have one after lunch and one after dinner every day, because that's what I do. I overdo things because I am an addict to sugar. And back then I was doing monk fruit. So even though I wasn't getting sugar, I was having all these sweet things after every meal. I was feeding my addiction even though it wasn't sugar. So I've stopped adding sugar completely. I do just the heavy whipping cream, cream cheese, and milk. You can throw a cooked egg in there if you want. There's all these different ways to make it, but I don't sweeten it. I won't use allulose. I won't use monk fruit. I won't use stevia. I don't do that anymore. I learned that it just makes me crave more. So twice a year, I have a creamy happy birthday to me and Merry Christmas to me. And that's all I do this for. Let me put that aside. I have a toaster oven too. I'm not going to bring the toaster oven over. Let's see. This is a vegetable peeler, but I don't eat vegetables, so what do I do with it? I use this with my Parmesan cheese, and I scoop off instead of the grater. Sometimes I use the grater, but sometimes I don't want to dirty that up, and I only want a few of these slices in my soup or in my eggs, and I'll just scoop off a little bit with my vegetable peeler. It's a cheese peeler now. All right, made a video making chaffles. This is my chaffle maker. I have 3 of these. I get 3 of them running at the same time. I mix egg, shredded cheese, a little bit of salt, that's it. I put the dollop on there, close the lid, and it looks and tastes and smells just like a waffle, but it's a chaffle. It's just cheese and eggs. Pretty cool device and pretty affordable in the store. Tongs, metal tongs, don't use plastic, use metal tongs. I have 3 sets of these. This is a thermometer. Let's go in closer so you can see it. Meat thermometer, okay? You take it out. Very, very accurate meat thermometer. And you put it in the middle of the meat. We have another thermometer, and I can't find it right now. We used it around Christmas time, and it goes into the middle of a prime rib or in the middle of chicken. You set it out there with the grill or in your oven, and it has, a metal wire, and you can observe the inside temperature so you know when to pull it out, which is very important with poultry and very important with pork. You want to make sure you're at the right temperatures. For poultry, for chicken, we make sure it's about 159, 160 before we take the chicken off the grill. And then we let it sit there until it continues to cook till about almost 170. And then we cut the chicken up and eat it. I don't do a lot of pork, but I make sure my pork, I don't know what the temperature's supposed to be, but I make sure that sucker is almost well done. Pork and poultry you want to cook. Beef, I love rare or medium rare. I don't really do a temperature. I just go by feel and sight and touch, and I cut into it. I love a good old rare steak. This is kind of cool. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. This is an emulsifier, immersion blender. Okay, you put it in and you go up and down with it. And it's really powerful. All stainless steel on this end. No plastic. Try to get away from using all the plastic. So those are some of my kitchen tools. I have many more, but try to stay away from plastic. try to change things. I made some changes over the years. I installed the reverse osmosis under my sink. I changed out my spatulas. I try to keep everything healthy in the tool department and not have plastics. When I store food in the refrigerator, I try to use glass. I do still use Tupperware, which is plastic. I make sure the food is cold before I put it in the refrigerator, and I never heat my food up in Tupperware. Never, never, never. And I try not to put it in the dishwasher either, because then the heating element comes on to dry and it heats that plastic up. So I just try to stay away from all plastics as much as possible. Another thing, I don't use aluminum foil for cooking anymore. We use butcher paper. Let me show you that. It's just this stuff you can get at Home Depot. They don't have it in the store. They don't have it anywhere except where they sell grills. So this is butcher paper. Okay, it's paper. There's no waxy coating, nothing. It's butcher paper. It can endure high heat. It doesn't burn. What we do when we make our beef ribs on the Traeger grill, we smoke them from 12 o'clock until 6 o'clock, and there are steps to making them. And one of the steps is to cover the whole thing in butcher paper. And we put butter in there and we cut the paper off. So I don't use aluminum foil when cooking. We will use cookie sheets, you know, to put my, I did a video showing chicken wings on a cookie sheet. We put the ribs on a cookie sheet. This goes in the grill, okay, or in the oven. It's made out of metal. It's not nonstick. There's no plastic parts, and they don't make cookies. I wanted to show you some of the things I use in the kitchen to make my carnivore foods. Eat well, have a wonderful day, and never stop learning and applying. All these things I showed you, I didn't used to do them 6, 7, 8 years ago. Little by little, I changed and made adaptations and additions and subtractions to my kitchen tools so that my food is healthier. Have a good day, everybody.